Arsenic and Old Lace, 1944, Frank Capra, um, black comedy, basically masterpiece. I mean, I can't see anything wrong with it. Um, it's a lovely, incredibly funny little film with a wonderful lead performance from Cary Grant, who is just outright hilarious. Not just in his physicality, but in his emotionality. It is wild seeing Cary Grant just like shriek and grunt and scream and lose his mind, lose his reality over the fact that his family are completely insane people, murderers and murderesses. Uh, Arsenic and Old Lace is great. Priscilla Lane is a beautiful girl. Love seeing her here. And Peter Lorre, yeah, just when you think the film has started to run its course, Peter Lorre and a Boris Karloff lookalike show up, and it just gets even crazier. That fuse is lit again, and it's fireworks. It's fireworks every time. I'd like to read something really quick that would frame my analysis, really. It's from Frank Capra's Autobiography, which is one of the best books I've ever read about film. I mean, this cat is really cool, really funny, and really insightful. But I want to read something from early on in the book, chapter called Comedy and the King. Frank Capra, one of his earliest gigs, or really how he actually did break into the film industry, apart from like uh, by lying and getting to film uh, a short for a producer who really didn't know any better. He started his first professional job really was as a gag writer for Hal Roach and Max Sennett during the silent film era. He would just write gags and gags and gags. But if you know anything about Frank Capra, he's a person who wants to kind of deconstruct, completely understand, be incredibly well informed about everything that he's doing, especially if it's film, because to him, film was like a magic carpet. Film was his life's blood. Film was his Shangri-La. Film was his savior. And when he became a gag man, he took it very seriously and tried to figure out, you know, comedy. He just tried to understand cinematic comedy. I'm gonna read something very brief from here. Um, he's talking about like why are gags funny? Like why are some things always just so funny in our culture? And he's just said it's like a very sticky thing to try to answer, but fundamentally, human experience has taught us to know things as they are or should be. And when they aren't, they strike us as funny or tragic. I really don't have to read much further than that to really frame my analysis. Comedy is when an unsuspecting character is thrust into a reality that is completely opposed to their own, um, but entirely welcoming. When you are welcomed into a reality that is not your reality and everything is so absurd, so demented that it becomes farcical, that the real world becomes satirical, and this happens to Mortimer Brewster in Arsenic and Old Lace. He is thrust into a reality that he just does not comprehend, refuses to understand, and it just drives him crazy because his actual reality seems to be so alien compared to this new insane reality um, from his aunts, from the murderers inside the house, and the dude who thinks he's Teddy Roosevelt. He's thrust into a new reality that he has to accept, that he feels like he has to clean up, and the actual world starts seeing him lose his mind within this new um, dark comedy atmosphere. And it happens. That's really how Frank Capra sets up jokes. Because even when Peter Lorre and the Boris Karloff lookalike show up, even their sense of a normal reality would have seemed insane had Mortimer Brewster not completely lost his grip of reality earlier. And Of course, like Peter Lorre and the Boris Karloff look-alike, who is actually Mortimer Brewster's long-lost, demented brother. Um, they're criminals and murderers and back alley plastic surgeons, and even their reality is opposed and altered and invaded by the reality of the three crazy people living inside of that Brewster home. And it even gets into a little bit of I think that Capra is also satirizing an American criticism, or a popular criticism that America levies unto itself, in that the Brewster family had been around since the Mayflower, like one of the very first families of the American experiment. And the American experiment are these really kind, really nice, genteel old ladies who have a dozen bodies buried in the basement, and a crazy man upstairs who believes that he is a president of the United States. They poison these old men and they bury him in the basement. America has to learn how to deal with the reality that there are corpses in their home, like right underneath the floorboards. Americans have to come to that reality. That would be a criticism that America levies unto itself, and I think that's a criticism of the actual play this film was based on. But I don't think Capra really lends any credence to these criticisms, because I think he's satirizing that criticism entirely. And I think he does it in a fascinatingly uh, witty and suspenseful way, even. I mean, I should say that this film is remarkably cinematic. Um, Most of the film takes place in like one single room, so it would run the risk of, theater is not cinema, cinema is not necessarily theater, but Capra makes this play completely cinematic with I don't know. Peter Lorre must have sent off something in his brain, because there are so many shots that seem to be inspired by German expressionism. There are a lot of incredibly moody close-ups. There's an interesting amount of editing, some even staccato, but mostly all are kind of lyrical, that provide this play, the staging and choreography, to feel so much more cinematic and so much larger than what it actually truly was. Capra was able to, within a very confined set, make something incredibly cinematic out of a static living room, and he really did a very impressive job. But I think that's fascinating. Like, I think he views part of the lived American experience as a comedy. Because so when the reality of your situation, like, Americans have to live their lives in some sort of ignorance of all the bodies that are in the basement. Metaphorically, like, we have, or actually literally, but we have to live in ignorance of it, in order to live a sane life. For if we recognized it, that kind of reality would intercede on our own and supersede our actual reality. And, well, that's a definition of a Capra-esque comedy. So it can't be a criticism, it's a satirical farce. I mean, there could be criticism within the farce, but I don't believe Capra was actually criticizing America at all. I think he was criticizing the criticism by just showing how insane every reality is. So it doesn't really matter if there's an insane subterranean level to the American background, because everything in the American foreground is batshit lunatics. Lunacy is crazy. Um, but that's exactly I think what Capra is doing here. And I think Capra does a fascinating job with this film. Cary Grant is, yeah, remarkable. It's hard to believe he wasn't the first choice for this role. Peter Lorre is a scene stealer. Peter Lorre is style incarnate, atmosphere incarnate. He's wonderful. He's always great. And yeah, Priscilla Lane's a super hottie. She's great. She's great to see. Actually, wish we got even more of her. But I mean, hers is the last reality to be interfered with. She's the last one to discover the bodies in the basement, and it takes a lot of forced kissing from Cary Grant to make her just kind of accept that all of these different kind of insane levels of reality can exist within this one single America. Um, I think it's pretty masterful in the idea that I can't find anything wrong with it. There might not be as much passion from Capra in this particular film, but it's from one of the greatest runs in movie history from for a director. It started off with 1934, and It Happened One Night, and went all the way up towards like It's a Wonderful Life. I know he made this film. It came out in 44, but it was filmed earlier. I believe like literally right before he was to report to the US Army to make the Why We Fight series, the propaganda series for them. And I believe I read or I heard somewhere that Frank Capra was making this film to make sure that his family could live comfortably in case anything were to happen during the war, and just to make sure that their finances were secured. He did Arsenic and Old Lace because he learned from like something like You Can't Take It With You, which is a definite masterpiece. That plays are that's where the money is, baby. That's where the gravy train is. So we decided to do Arsenic and Old Lace, and he really handles the black comedy stylings incredibly well. They fit directly into a Capra-esque universe. There is no Capra hero because because everyone here has to be a bit batty. But I think Capra is kind of taking this opportunity to criticize a common American criticism, a common American self-criticism, and say that look, everyone's insane. There are so many different levels of insanity. You can go to the cellar and you can look in there, and I'm sure you'll find bodies, but you'll also find a theater of lunacy in the floor right above it. From everyone, from the policeman to the drama critic to these old women, you'll find insanity everywhere. And Capra gets to have fun with some meta contextual things as well. At least two different times, characters are recalling plays that they watched, or plays that they want to write. That involve some sort of suspenseful or Hitchcockian element where a character is an unknowing character is going to be killed by a murderer and is just acting so stupid and so silly, and that's and it looks like reality is taking its cues from the from criticisms of a play or wanting to write a play. Reality is taking its cue. It's being directed by dialogue, and that's also really cool to think about. It's really fascinating to think about. Let's see. Is there anything else I want to say about Arsenic and Old Lace besides it's hilarious and probably a masterpiece? I can't find anything fucking wrong with it. Um, let's see. I do think it is Capra criticizing a common American criticism uh, by humiliating an American drama critic. I think that's exactly what it is. Anyways, I'm your cult boyfriend, and I'm done with this video now. Thank you for watching so much. Where the fuck do I think I'm going? I gotta press stop. Well, I gotta find the button first, I guess. Priscilla Lane, hottie. Such a fucking hottie. For real, dude. I mean, so is Cary Grant. Cary Grant is scrumptious, just divine.